Well, let's talk a little bit about SuperBrawl, the event. It's February 11th, 1996. We're at the Bayfront Center, St. Petersburg, Florida. We start off, Arn, with the Public Enemy versus the Nasty Boys. You want to talk about hardcore mayhem. What did you think about Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge as a tag team and how they fit in WCW?
They had their niche. Their deal was the tables thing, I think.
Yeah.
They've been together quite a while. They just had a different style. It was more of a street fight style. They weren't polished by any stretch of the imagination. But they had a following from ECW, and they parlayed that into a launching pad for WCW.
I was watching the match, and I thought to myself, what a perfect matchup between these two teams. Talk about rough tumble through the arena, not afraid of getting hurt. They were going through tables. They were in the merchandise stands. It was just wildly entertaining as a starting match for the pay-per-view. And having been a fan of ECW at the time, to see them come over and do what they were doing and fit in with a team like the Nasty Boys, it was like the perfect booking to have them working together. So it was a fun match to watch. Next up on the card, let's talk about a guy that we got to talk to a little bit earlier this year, Johnny B. Bad, Mark Merrow versus Diamond Dallas Page. Listen, this is Johnny B. Bad's final pay-per-view in WCW. And you know why? He didn't like the creative direction. He didn't like the direction they were headed with Kimberly. So he asked for his release, Arn. And do you remember anything about this time frame with him leaving or, just going to Bischoff and saying, hey, our visions are clashing and all that good stuff with Merrow and the office?
I don't really, and I wasn't there for any of the private conversations.
Sure.
Where would he have been in his contract? I'm assuming is his latest contract, which he had like a 3-year deal for some strong money.
I'm sure. But yeah, you know what? And it's funny as we go back and talk about these guys and we're like, him leaving and what's he going to, think, and then you just sit and armchair quarterback the deal. He ends up in WWF, landing on his feet, and the career is as we know what happened there, successful, made money and continued to do well for himself. Andrew in the comments said his contract was coming up. So it's not like he, had several years left on his contract or anything like that.
So he already had the 3 strong years behind him when he left, because
contract's coming up. He's not happy what's going on with him and Kimberly and what they're trying to, how they're writing the script for him. So he says, I want out.
Probably good timing.
Yeah. So he's on his way out and not really sure what's going on here. Obviously Bischoff is has a more prominent voice. Dusty was a big fan of Bad at the time. So you have that changing. Then we move on. We have Sting and Luger versus Harlem Heat. Road Warriors interfere. Luger steals the pin. It's classic tweener stuff. What do you think about the gray area characters? Is that good storytelling, or are you always, hey, I want the good and evil?
I like it clarified who you are. Gray area is too hard to pull off. And I think it's just better off, if you watch a cowboy movie, you got the good guys and the bad guys.
Yeah, that was going on with these 3 teams here. And so we move on from that match. And also they're teasing some stuff between Sting and Luger as we go here, them having some friction. We move on to Conan versus One Man Gang. The Mexican megastar wins the U.S. title. Do you think that WCW, Arn, during this time did a good enough job introducing these international talents to American fans?
Who knows? Probably not. Probably not. Most guys that came in, you got a 1 or 2 week push and they move on to somebody else.
I say that because you see some of that nowadays with some of the feedback, depending on what wrestling company you follow, but online social media. Man, would love to have seen more of a video backstory on this person so I could appreciate who they are and what they've been through. And it's a compelling, tool for storytelling when you understand who they are. I know I felt that way, especially with some of the New Japan talent. It's almost assumed that we know who all these guys are. We're all hardcores. We watch everything that's ever been produced. When in reality, that's not necessarily the case. Okay. Sure. Maybe one or two people, that I've heard of, but I do think that as much as some of these wrestling companies I'm talking more about today, but even back then, man, don't discount the ability or opportunity to make sure you're presenting these folks with as much of a backstory for us so that we can really appreciate what we're watching and who's being introduced to us.
Agreed. 100%. The one thing Vince got, he got a lot of things right, but with this company and WWF, they would always, if you're bringing in a new fresh talent, they would have about 6 weeks of, vignettes.
Yeah.
Which did exactly what you just asked for.
Yeah.
Introduce me to this guy. Let me know his background, because in those days there was no social media. It was wrestling magazines, wrestling tapes, and word of mouth, right?
He was creating characters the way he wanted to introduce them to you, but he was still creating them prior to ever putting them in a ring.
That's right.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. Even Dusty. I know he was the son of a plumber and he did all those gimmick, deals with him, but still Mr. Perfect. Think about the vignettes. Ted DiBiase, all the awesome vignettes introducing him in that character. When he came out, the crowd erupted because they knew exactly what this guy was. So you got to give credit where credit is due.
Recognition is everything in this business. We tell the audience the way we use a guy debuting and the way you did is with the vignettes and all, figuring what kind of star he was going to be. Well, they're going to have to push this guy to the moon. If you had just one or two vignettes or something that weren't that creative, maybe it was to educate you 3 weeks from now when he comes through the curtain, but it wasn't the same push that you would give a DiBiase or Mr. Perfect, like you said, any of those guys.
Think about, too, if you're just a fan in the audience and they just bring out the guy for the first time and you're not hearing Mike Tenay or Tony Schiavone or someone give you even any kind of explanation either. You're not even hearing that. You're just cold to whoever just came out and seeing him for the first time.
Well, and conversely, just using us as an example, after we left and went to WWF to wrestle, Tully and I, we didn't have ring music. We never had. So when they played, the introductions and all that stuff, we just came through the curtain. There was no music. There was nothing to recognize us by, but we had all that name recognition, face recognition. It was like, I'll never forget it. We came through the curtain. We're heading to the ring, and guys are going, Jesus Christ, that's the Horseman. Yeah. I'm hearing the fans recognize us on the way to the ring. So we had that advantage. We slid in the ring. People reacted because we had 3 years of TV behind us.
That's right. Yep. That was definitely a different story. Even when Flair first came out with the big gold belt and it was all, messed up on TV, the crowd knew who he was, TV, because we had watched him on TV and it was more exposure. Ryan Note on the chat says the Bushwhackers had fun vignettes and were over as hell. You got that right, man. The vignettes were everything for the Bushwhackers before they even got in the ring.
Whoa, yay.
All right, let's get into it. And before I get into the Pillman Sullivan, we got a super chat, and we want to make sure we take care of our super chats. The Riddler 3579. The Arn merchandise is outstanding. The fit of the shirts are perfect, and the zip hoodies are the best seen to date. Will there be a 2XL bomber in the near future? I'm going to the bomber jacket right now. I'm on there. You know what? It's out of stock, the 2XL, but that doesn't mean it's not coming back. So keep an eye out for it. And I'm sure once it's back in stock, it will populate on the website. So Riddler, great question. But listen, thank you for that awesome feedback. we're not lying on here, guys, about the quality of this merch. It's fantastic, and we appreciate you taking advantage of it.
And just to make sure we get some more, I want one too. So
I know. I know the 2XL will be coming down. Yeah.
Put me down for the 2X, my man.
You got it. You got it. See, Arn wears the merch too. Wear what Arn Anderson wears. Okay. So there you have it. All right, let's get back to it. CG, real quick, I'll say this. Arn and the Four Horsemen had an aura about them. As a teenager, I'd get goosebumps just hearing them be introduced.